Hello, online college algebra. I've had a few questions about this week one problem set. So we have this week one problem set. We also have the answer submission sheet. So that is where you'll just enter those answer choices. If you go into that particular problem set, week one problem set, review the questions below and provide your answers in the answer submission file. Show all of your work. One thing I do want you to note is you see down here adapted from Math in the Society open textbook. So if you actually click in that link, it'll bring you to where this online textbook is coming from. It's an open education resource, and this section is the finance section. So if you click on the document, the PDF, or the playlist, it gives you a little bit more information. There's also solutions to some of the selected exercises. Just make sure that they actually line up to the ones that we are looking at. So if I open that finance section, what you're going to see is this is where it's going to walk you through from page 1 here. Simple interest, and then it works through compound interest. That's why some of you guys have asked me questions, and my first question is it simple interest? Is it compound interest? What further information did it give? Just a couple numbers isn't enough in this section. It talks about annuities, and it gives examples all through. And then when you get to the very bottom here, that's where you're going to get to those questions. So these are some try it nows, and then we have some exercises. So you see how number 1 here, a friend lends you $200 for the week. That is very similar to our very first question, which was finding that interest for a friend lends you $200 for a week, which you agree to repay with 5% one-time interest. How much will you have to repay? So she's charging you. I'm going to open up Excel. And I know some of you guys aren't necessarily the most comfortable using Excel, but you can do all of these things in a calculator as well. So you have to pay them that $200. You also have to pay them that $200 times 0.05. Remember, when I have a percentage, so in this case 5%, if I want that percentage sign to leave, I'm going to move 2 places to the left. Percentage sign leaves, decimal goes 2 places to the left. So 5% is 0.05. So this individual is going to pay the $200 plus the $10 for a total of $210. So we want to make sure that we understand that part of it. That's the straight interest. Another one that we can look at is number 5 here. You deposit $2,000 in an account earning 3% interest compounded monthly. For part A, how much will you have in the account in 20 years? So if I come into my Excel here, what I'm going to do is I'm actually looking for a future value. So if I type equals FV, that's going to be future value. And once I open those parentheses, you see this area right here. It tells me I need to put my rate first, my number of payments, my payment, my present value. So I want the future value. And I deposited $2,000. It's 3% compounded monthly. So for that rate, I need to do 0.03, but because it's monthly, I have to divide that 3%, 0.03 by 12, comma, the next thing is the number of payments. So it's 20 years, but it's 12 months per year. So I have to do 20 times 12. I'm going to do a comma. I have 0 payments, so it's going to be 0 for my PMT, which is my payment. My present value, well, I deposited $2,000, so 2,123. So I am going to have $3,641.51. So $3,641.51. Part B asks, how much interest will I earn? Well, if I originally had $2,000, and then I have $3,641.51. The amount of interest I earned was $1,641.51. So I got that from subtracting the future value minus the $2,000 I originally had. how did I find that future value? Equals FV. When I did my interest rate, I had to divide. If it's monthly, I have to divide by 12. If it's quarterly, I divide by 4. If it's semi-annually, I divide by 2. And so once we do that, we have to make sure if we adjust that interest rate, we also adjust that number of payments. So let's look at number 12 here. You want to buy a $200,000 home. You plan to pay a 10% monthly, 10% down payment and take out a 30-year loan for the rest. So for part A, how much is the loan going to be? So you kind of have two choices here. You can either take 10% of 200,000 and subtract that from 200,000, or you know that you're paying 90%. So 0.9 times 200,000. And so that's going to end up being 180,000. Because 10% of 200,000 is 20,000. If I took that away, so the value of the loan that I'm taking out is $180,000. For part 2, what will the monthly payments be if the interest rate is 5%? And then the second part is what would the monthly payments be if the interest rate is 6%? So just like we had that equals FV for future value, we have equals PMT for payment. Once I open those parentheses with Shift 9, it automatically tells me right underneath here what I need to put in each of the places. So my rate, well, remember my rate is 5% and it's going to be monthly. 5% is 0.05. I need to divide that by 12 because it's monthly. The next thing is NPER, the number of payments. Well, it's a 30-year loan, and it's 12 times per month. My present value, that is my 180,000. My future value better be 0. And so my monthly payment is $966.28 if I have a 5% interest. If I had a 6% interest, 0.06 divided by 12, 12 times 30, present value is the 180,000. And so if my interest rate was 6%, it would be $1,079.19. So you notice that these are negatives. If I had made that present value negative, and sometimes it's easier for students just to see putting these pieces in and just getting that negative answer, knowing that that's a payment, so it's money that's going out. So that is why you see that negative. If I look at a question like number 14 here, a friend bought a house 15 years ago, taking out a $120,000 mortgage at 6% for 30 years, making monthly payments. How much does she still owe on the mortgage? Well, the first thing I need to do is determine the payment. Equals payment. The rate is 0.06 divided by 12. Number of payments is 12 times 30 because it was a 30-year mortgage. The present value is $120,000. So the payment was $719.46 each month. Well, the friend bought the house 15 years ago, and they want to know how much they still owe at this point. So there's 15 years remaining. So because they picked the number in the middle, you can't make a mistake picking the wrong number. So I want equals the present value of, my rate is still 0.06 divided by 12. The number of payments now is 15 years times 12. And my payment is $719.46. So they still owe $85,258.54. If we look at something like 15, Kay is saving $200 a month into an account earning 5% interest. How long will it take her to save $20,000? So we're looking for the time at this point in time. So what I need to do for 15 is we need the number of payments equals NPER, the number of payments. My rate is 0.05 divided by 12 because it's monthly, comma, my payment. Remember how we had all those negatives? You have to use the negative here. Negative 200, comma, My present value is 0. She doesn't have any money right now. My future value is 20,000. 20123. 83.76. So we're going to round that up to 84 months in order to save $20,000. The last question I had a few questions on was number 20 here. You really want to buy a used car. So if I really want to buy a used car for $11,000, let me bring this up a little bit. So I really want to buy a used car for $11,000, but can only afford $200 a month. What interest rate will you need in order to be able to afford the car? So one thing I want to point out is, remember all these pieces? Rate was just like the NPER. So those are going to be the important formulas that you're going to have here. Equals rate of number of payments. So it is 60 months is the number of payments. So it's a 5 years monthly, but it's 60 months. The payment is going to be $200. The present value is $11,000. I want that future value to be 0. And then we are going to make those payments at the beginning of the period. And we have to give it a guess, just because the way it iterates, it needs to kind of come up with an initial guess. So if I make this into a couple places, I have 0.3%. Remember, that's a monthly rate. Remember to put that payment in as that negative. So my annual rate would be to multiply that by 12, because remember we've been dividing by 12 to bring it down to our monthly to enter. Well, this is going to be to multiply by 12 to bring it back up. What I always recommend here, well, I want my future value of, my rate is 0.036 divided by 12. My number of payments was 60. My payment was 200, and so I had to make sure that went in as a negative. So we want to make sure equals the present value, because I want, what is it today, at 3.6% per month divided by 12, 5 years, so 60 months, and $200, so that payment is always going in as that negative. So the present value of that would be $10,966.98, which is basically your $11,000. So what we want to make sure as we go through is that we can use Excel to help us. There's also other great online calculators that will calculate the interest for us. So I hope that this helped a little bit. I know going through Excel is probably a little bit different for you guys. But one of the things I want you guys to do is be willing to use different calculators, whether it's through Excel or different financial calculators on the web. And you guys got this. Make sure you reach out to me with questions.